Right. Hi, I'm Grandmaster Magesh Panchanathan. Welcome to the USCS School class. And today I'm going to be showing you one of my training games. So on and off, I play training games as part of Pro Chess training. Grandmaster Surya Ganguly actually gave this position to me. I was playing against 2300 to give you a context. And I was playing white here. And the game was so fascinating throughout. So I thought it should be something that, we should discuss. So typically we try to play like one game a week or something on very specific topic. And the time control is usually about 15 minutes plus 10 seconds. So I believe this one was that 15 minutes plus 10-second increment. And this is the starting position. So let's jump right into it. And before we do anything else, I've always done this with other classes too. And hopefully if you've been in my class before, what I'd like to start is first to try to understand the position. Sometimes, of course, dynamic positions are a little tricky, but in any case, you should always try to understand the position or look through some basic concepts before you start making plans, before you start making any concrete variations or whatever it is. Yeah. And okay, so by the way, you can do it in private chat. Give it to me in private chat, so it's easy. Rishi, yeah. Hi, Rishi. Hi, Eric. And Vihan, good to see you all, Austin. All right, so you can start with private chat. Tell me what you see. It doesn't have to be a move. It doesn't have to be a plan. It's just basic observation of the position. Like Rishi is saying, it's double pawns. White has double pawns. There is no specific topic, Suren. I'm going to be showing my game. There is an interesting middle game part, and then we're going to go through the progression and maybe even see the end game part of it. White's minor pieces are bad. Black king is weak. The knight is on a6. Black king side is weak. White is up a pawn. That is true. f6 is not very good. Light square weaknesses. h5, e8 diagonal. d3 could be a huge problem if black plays knight takes c3. Both both sides are lacking development. Okay. All right, very good, very good. I like a lot of black has more space because of the d4 pawn, I guess. Black will be better or winning if white cannot do something immediately. Interesting observation there. I'm not so sure if I'll call it winning, but I see the extra space on d4 and maybe knight takes c5 threat are fair enough. Yeah. All pieces are on the board. That is true. Yeah. Pretty much all pieces are there on the board. Yeah. All right. So I think good observation. The c5 pawn is the extra pawn I have, but I'm probably going to lose it. It's under attack, of course. The knight on a6 and bishop on f8. d4 does give enough space for black. And, if I can take like this, or if I can threaten like this, I could create some activity on the queen side. Yeah. For black. Now, this is definitely very odd. Someone pointed out a weak diagonal. Someone maybe also pointed out a possible open attack on the king in the file. And both sides have not castled. Both sides have not completed development. Yeah. So these are all very good things. Okay. All right. Now let's jump into what will you actually do. We're jumping into more concrete thinking now. Clearly, this is a very dynamic position. Yeah. You don't want to think in terms of long-term ideas here. Some positions that will make sense, but here you probably want to start jumping into some variations, even though if it is not too long. Let's start by calculating a few options. So let's say we'll decide between 3 to 5 minutes to come up with something. Yeah. I'm going to start the timer. Yeah. And start typing in variations. It doesn't have to be a final one. As long as you have a few ideas, you can start building on it slowly. Okay. Austin May. I like the idea. Keep thinking. And of course, whenever you're ready, you can give me a final conclusion. Remember this, I always like to let you know that you control this. In a game, you decide how much time you want to use. So you have to learn to understand which position requires what amount of time. So if you feel like in a minute or two you're done, you can give me, say it's the final conclusion, and give me a variation. If not, you can keep adding variations and say, oh, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. Guru, that's fair enough, but I want you to start writing variations. Yeah, I like the fact that you have some interesting idea. Let's go one variation after another. Okay, so Kyle has given me something. Ananya. Aryan has given me something. Ryan Bay, okay. Interesting, Ananya. All right, I'm going to still stick to the time. You still have about, right now we're just crossing the 2-minute mark. And if anyone feel like you're done, you can of course let me know. If not, you can still continue to give me these variations. Very interesting ideas, by the way. Austin, probably this is not the time to discuss that. We'll send you to Geek Squad or something at some point, then you can discuss that. Okay, Aravind Tyagarajan has given me something, and Vihan. Okay, so we are getting past the 3-minute time. Does anyone feel like you kind of have made a decision? If you have made a decision and this is your final variation, can you put that in one more time, if you don't mind? Because I know a lot of variations came through, but at that point, I was not sure if it was a final variation, if you were still calculating any further. Well, if you're not sure, I guess you probably will be spending more time in an actual game. So right now we don't have that much time. We're past like 4 minutes. We're close to 5 minutes. I want to cap it at 5. So give me what you think is your best decision at this point. Okay. Vihan, you did not write black's move after your first move, right? Oh, I guess I'm assuming this is the move now. Okay. Okay, so Roger, you gave me a good variation, but you think black should be okay, yeah? All right, so let's talk about it. So this is what I've gotten so far. I've gotten knight takes d4. I've gotten knight to g5. I've gotten castle. I've gotten bishop a3. Did I miss anything else? Let's see if I missed any other move. Seems like these are the main moves I have. Yeah? Okay. So again, fair enough. The first thing is when you have a dynamic position and you're playing against a dynamic concept, which in this case, of course, is a weak king, you definitely have to calculate these moves before anything else. So those who do not calculate knight d4 or knight g5, I have to say that first you have to reassess your understanding of the position, right? So if you're thinking that you can castle, you can play d3, you can play bishop a3, then probably you're not seeing the urgency of the position yet. But between knight d4 and knight g5, when I was playing, by the way, one more reason I like to show this now is because whenever I show a game that I played, it's so much easier for me to talk about how I was calculating, what decisions I was making, and it's much easier. Yeah. Okay, I think we are going to change this. So chat is done. we will do the chat at the end of the class. Okay, so the point is knight d4 stands out because again it's a forcing move, and also when knight takes d4 we have queen e3. So it's much easier to look at this follow-up, right? Also knight d4 immediately opens up bishop h5. So I started calculating knight d4 almost instantly, and the difference between knight g5 and knight d4 is that knight g5 does not allow queen e3. And also it does not open the bishop's diagonal for me. So clearly it makes sense to look at knight to d4. So then the next question is, should I go queen e3 first or should I go bishop h5 first? What should I calculate? Because I've gotten both from you guys. Some of you are saying queen e3, knight e6, and then bishop h5. Some of you are playing bishop h5 and then play queen e3. What should I calculate first? Ryan is saying queen e3. Austin May, very good point. That's exactly what I was calculating during the game. So I'm going to talk about it in just a second to everyone. Arvind wants to play queen e3. Good point. Very good. Very good. Owen wants to go bishop h5 first. Roger, that's exactly right. Okay. So some of you are saying it doesn't matter. Some of you are saying this is the mode that I want to go in. So the point is, I wanted to play bishop h5 first because in calculation, it's much simpler when you know your opponent's moves are restricted. When you play bishop h5 first, the king has to go d7. The king does not have d7 because the knight on d4 hangs. So it's so much easier to calculate bishop h5. And also I like putting the king on e7. It's still in an open file, right? It's blocking the bishop, it's blocking the queen. It's so much better for me to attack when the king is on e7 compared to d7. I mean, I can attack it on d7 too. I don't think it's really safe there, but maybe I'll try to plan to run away or something. Or most importantly, I think Austin May pointed out that the bishop is open to taking on c5. So I'm still threatening to develop faster when the king is on d7. So it should be, again, more intuitive decisions, these things. So knight takes d4, bishop h5, king e7 is pretty much forced. Now you can play queen e3 and then go knight e6, right? So this variation came instantly when I looked at it, but the question is only assessment. So now I had to decide, am I winning or am I clearly better? What would be the assessment? For example, some of you gave me this variation, but said black is okay. Black can defend. Some of you said that, white is winning. Some of you are, so for example, you're saying unclear, fair enough. Yeah. So we have multiple evaluations. So the main question is, what is the evaluation? The time control is 15 plus 10. By the way, I think I made this decision in about 2 minutes. So like I said, the variation was very straightforward to me. The only question I had to do was, what is the evaluation? Unclear, but white has a higher chance of winning. Okay. All right. All of you type in the evaluation in that position. So knight takes d4, bishop h5 check, king e7, queen e3 check, knight e6 position. It's white's turn to play. We can decide what white needs to play, of course, but you can also tell me what your evaluation in that position is. Plus equals, plus minus, or you can give a computer evaluation kind of thing too. Plus over minus. Okay. I don't know what plus means. Oh, I'm guessing it's close to winning. It's even better than checkmate. Okay, fair enough. I think most of you have given me an evaluation which is clearly better for white. I evaluated this to be winning for white. Basically, something plus minus separate. You can call it 2 point or whatever it is. So I evaluate this to be very simply winning for white. And so let's move on. Knight takes d4, bishop h5 check, king e7, queen e3 check, and now, okay, oops, queen d3, queen e3 check, knight e6. At this point, I considered two main candidate moves, but later I realized there's also a third candidate move. There are about three moves, all of them are equally winning. So let's just see, type in your candidate moves. I think the first two are very obvious. Can you type them together so I can see it together, so you don't type one at a time? So we can't put all of them together. Yeah. Ryan Bay, perfect. Those are the three moves. I actually consider the first two very clearly. Ananya, perfect. Yep, I think most of you are having it right, but there are a couple of moves that I'm seeing. First thing is, I mean, c6 is a possible idea, but I was not ready to do that yet. Like, if I wanted to play c6, I wanted to put the bishop here first, because if I play c6 and they take, they can always play c5 and block me. So I was not really too keen on doing that right away. And I also was not keen on moving my queen. Some of you are suggesting some queen moves. Yes, it's a threat. I can create attack on f6 or something, but I don't need to move my queen right now. If you are thinking about a proper attack, your queen, your bishop, and your bishop are already doing a great job. The question is how you bring the other pieces into the game, right? So d4, yes, fantastic. That's very, very obvious. I want to play d5. And knight c3, again, very obvious, because I want to play knight d5. So these are the two moves I was mainly deciding between in the game. And also later I found out castling could have been also considered. I mean, I looked at it briefly, but I didn't really go in depth. So, okay, between d4 and knight c3, I simply went with knight c3 because I felt, okay, I'm leaning more towards development. I wanted the pieces into the game. So I played knight c3 because I want to, of course, activate the piece more than playing d4, d5, yeah? I went to knight c3 and my opponent played knight to b4. Okay, so this one, I'm not going to give too much time. Don't type in any move that you're just thinking. I want only a final answer. So let's say I'll give you like 2 minutes. And the only thing I want you to type is the move you will play when you're ready within those 2 minutes. So don't type any other moves you're considering or thinking about. So let's start the timer. It's very easy. I don't think we should worry too much about it. If you are playing an attacking game, these kind of moves should be very natural for you. Well, you have to give me a decision. Where is the question mark coming from? Austin, May, okay. Eric Liu, I like it. Rishi, are you sure you can play that move? What if I take? Very interesting. I'm getting a lot of interesting moves. I thought I'll get a unanimous, almost a unanimous decision, but I've gotten so many new different moves. I see your very precise evaluation, Aryan. I can't tell if your evaluation is good. It's too precise for me to make a comment. Okay, so time is almost up. Everyone, just type in something, because I want you to hold that as a commitment to yourself. Because when you force yourself to make a decision, you can reflect back to say, okay, under the gun, what was the decision? Yeah. So, all right, I got castling, I got long castling, I got knight d5 check, I got king d1. So these are the moves I've gotten so far. Yeah. So, okay, unfortunately, I don't think knight d5 is going to work. It's just, I just take, yeah. I'm not so sure why I have to allow knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, and maybe I'm still attacking, but it just doesn't seem relevant to me. So, okay, you can try to castle or long castle or castle, and of course, king d1 also, right? But here's a problem. Some of you seem to think knight c2 is a threat. And that's why you're castling long or playing king d1. It's totally unnecessary, yeah? Knight c2 is not really a threat. It's only a threat if the king is there and you lose the queen, right? Just castle. Short castle. If you play short castle, you understand the position. If you played long castle, it's not a bad move, right? But again, you're focusing on material. You're worried about that rook. I think that's that thought you want to change a little bit, right? Because knight c2, knight takes a1 is the least thing. I mean, I'm not bothered about it at this point at all, yeah? So I castled short, and again, it's a pretty reasonable move. And here my opponent came up with something interesting. I mean, my opponent put up a very, very reasonable defense in this game. At this point, I was thinking I'm going to finish this game very, very quickly, and I'm just winning. And the training game should be over any minute. My opponent played queen d4. Okay, my initial thought was, okay, what did I miss? Am I not just winning a queen? Yes. Vihan's like, what? Yes, that's the first thought. But okay, if you look at it a little bit, you will start realizing that it's not that obvious. But here is the tricky part, right? Most of the variations you pick is probably better for white. Question is, which one will you pick? And again, I can relate to this very well because I was stuck in the same situation. I spent a few minutes here because I wanted to basically choose the best possible option where I can probably finish the game off. All right, let's do the same thing. I'll do between 3 to 5 minutes. You can start typing in all the thought process that comes to your mind. Of course, towards the end, I will hold you to give me a final variation. By the way, I see some of you are not in chat. You're watching this. Try to be engaged in the chat. If I look at your answers, I will be able to give you more feedback. All right. What can we play? Okay, Hanchi, I see a move. Austin May, you asked a very important question. Beautiful. Are we trying to find the most objectively best move, even if the resulting position is very complicated? Or are we trying to find the most simplified, least dangerous variation, right? Usually in my thought process, I want the simplest way to win. We're not computers, right? I want to win the game without any counterplay, right? Now, this sometimes can be misunderstood. So I want to be very careful, right? So sometimes my students think that I don't want to complicate things at all when I'm winning. No, that's not the case. Of course, I will complicate things if I think I'm going to come out on top and if I think it's good, right? But I don't want to complicate anything which is double-edged, where I'm going to walk in where I'm not so sure. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like, oh, they might get some chance to win the game or come back. No, I won't do that, right? Because I'm just winning here. I don't want my opponent to have any chance. You can easily answer this question when you think about what would you do if you are playing black here. What are you really hoping for? You're hoping for a chance to get some crazy, right? You don't want to be in a lost position. You want to at least try to get a crazy position where you have a chance to win or come back. So yeah, that's actually a very good question. A lot of times this comes into our conversation, and the key is always no counterplay for your opponent when you're winning. You control the game and you have to control throughout. Nate has given me something. Okay, very interesting. Nate, can you continue more on that? What will black play after that? All right, Guru. It's a little non-forcing, this move. Actually, hold on. I think you are forcing. Fair enough. You're creating a threat. Let's think about what black will play. I mean, I can take on c4. I can take on c5. I can try to... I feel like I have too many options, basically. When you don't play a forcing move, I feel like you're suddenly, giving me too many options. So that's an interesting variation, Aryan. Can you push further? I want to calculate a little bit more. Obviously, black wants to trade queens, Rishi, yes. But the good news is, even if black trades queens, I think black will be under heavy attack. That's a good thing. So Ryan, hey, that looks absolutely winning. Yeah. Like, I mean, it doesn't look like black has any real chance. So can you take a step back and see, is there any variation where black has something to play for? Kyle, that seemed too easy. I don't think black is going to do that. I'm not going to fall for something like that. That'll be an easier win for white. I think if you don't move your queen, I most likely will play queen takes e3. All right, let's see. What else do we have? I'm seeing basically 3 candidate moves so far. I have seen so that's the point of your move, Kyle. Okay, I see what you mean. Probably also pretty strong. But actually a variation of the first variation where you went knight c2, and after knight d5, maybe I can play queen takes d5. Yeah. What happens after that? Pawn takes and knight takes e3. You might be able to only take one of my knights, and maybe still interesting. I don't know. All right, so queen f3 is being considered. Knight d5 is being considered. Queen takes d4 is being considered. So let's see. Yeah, Nate, I think the variation you've given me, Nate, seems to be completely crushing now, right? You have to see if black has anything different. Angela, the same thing. I think the variation you gave me seems to be completely winning for white. I mean, white is winning in all variations, but okay. So we have spent about 5 minutes. So let's talk about all the variations. So knight d5, queen d4, a3, queen f3, rook e1. I don't know which rook was meant to go to e1. I got rook e1. So interesting. So the first thing is I was not spending too much time on moves like this because simply I feel like too many moves for black. I just didn't want to. Maybe I was just a little lazy. I didn't want to calculate. I can take some pawns already for which I don't have an immediate straightforward answer. Yeah, because knight d5 check I can take with the knight and get my queen out of the way. Or I can, yeah, I cannot play bishop g7 because knight d5. But yeah, maybe something like queen takes c4, right? Yes, up 2 pawns you should be winning. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what your first variation was, Austin. I'll come to that in just a second. But let me talk about this. So the most common move that I got from most of you was knight d5. So, and that's the move I was calculating too, right? After knight takes d5, of course, I'm looking at either pawn takes d5, queen takes d4, or something like that. But the simple option, which most of you are considering, is what I was doing: knight d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and c takes d5. So white is still down a piece, but the knight on d4 is under attack. And a lot of you are giving me this variation knight f5. Then you're giving me rook e1 check. King pretty much has to go to d7. And now your bishop takes f6. And maybe bishop g4 is also another option to win that piece back. And you should be up clear material and winning the game. Yeah. But I think black can improve it a little bit, a tiny bit. Can we do slightly better in that variation? Again, I try to push a little bit on your calculation. I want you to think as much as possible before you make the decision. So knight d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, c takes d5. I felt black will play a different move here. Yeah, I probably was expecting knight c2. Exactly, stopping rook e1. Yeah, and if you try to attack my knight with rook c1, I will go bishop f5. Then what do you do? So most of you gave me this variation. This is my question. Because you need to calculate knight c2 and you need to be very giving critical moves after that. Any ideas? Again, there are a couple of ways to proceed there. White is probably winning in multiple options. After bishop f5, you want to play rook f1. Kyle, if you want to play rook f1, why are you even allowing me to play bishop f5? If you're really going to sacrifice your rook on e1 for knight takes e1, you should do it before black plays bishop f5. So after knight c2, you can directly play rook e1, right? A3 was a lot easier. Actually, I'm going to consider this. Let's look at this. A3 somehow doesn't seem that easy. Okay, so if I take queen takes e3, you're going to do f takes e3. And yeah, I mean, this is also completely winning because when I move knight, you go knight d5 check and bishop f6, fair enough. And if I go knight c2, are you going knight d5 check? This is what we're calculating here. Knight d5 check, yes. And if I play queen takes d5, c takes d5, and knight takes e3, again, you'll play f takes e3, I guess, yeah? Yeah, threatening on g7. So I have to go something like this. Oh, yeah, pawn takes and bishop takes. So what are we? We're up 1 pawn, not 2, 1. I mean, I'm still happy, but only 1 pawn though, just letting you know. It's not plus equals. I'm sure white is winning. No, but the question is not that, Aryan, or anyone else who suggested this variation, right? In any given position, no one can tell you what is enough. You judge the position and say, is this enough? I would not be happy with this. I'll tell you when we started, I would not be happy. I definitely prefer the other variations where I had my pawn on d5, right? I would definitely prefer where I'm attacking the king a little bit more, creating more trouble for my opponent, right? So yeah, from that perspective, no questions. But anyways, coming back to the point, what I calculated was that when the knight goes to c2, so again, to recap, knight d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, c takes d5, and now knight goes to c2. I'll play it out in just a second, but I'm trying to help you visualize. Here, I thought I can actually sacrifice. I will play rook e1, knight e1, rook e1 check. The king has to go to d7, and I go bishop takes f6, and it looks like I have something very interesting. But I was thinking a little bit there, and somehow I felt like, okay, black is up a whole rook, so he might give up that rook and play an endgame. I'm still down, yeah? Yeah, exactly, Austin. The point is not that, can you win a certain position? The point is, let's say I give you a certain position, right, where you have an advantage, where you can win a queen, right? You would definitely not be happy winning a couple of pawns, right? Or if I give you enough of a checkmate attack that you feel like you should checkmate your opponent, and suddenly, instead you have to play an endgame up a pawn in a rook and pawn game, or even two pawns. I just don't want that, right? I want to be very clinical when I have that position. I want to find the best sequence to win the game, right? I don't want my opponent hanging around there, to simply tell you that, right? I wanted to play the move that will make sure zero hope for my opponent. Anyways, I did something funny. So I started calculating all of this, and I said, you know what? I could actually avoid this. I could avoid knight to c2 entirely because he's stopping rook e1, right? Maybe I'll mix it up in the move order. Someone actually mentioned this already to some extent. I don't know who exactly it was. I wanted to throw this rook e1 a little bit earlier so my opponent will not get knight c2. So what do you think the move order can be? Okay, you play queen takes d4, they'll play knight takes d4. I mean, rook e1 directly, again, it's just completely giving the chance back to my opponent to decide what move they want to play. Ryan Bay, that's the line I was initially calculating. I was happy to some extent, but I felt like I've given a full rook. I could even try to avoid that. Rook in check after nd4, correct? Yeah. So what I did was I played knight d5, and after knight takes d5, queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and now I thought, why not throw in the check first, right? So I could take on d5, but I can also throw the check and then take on d5. Then his knight going to c2 would be useless, yeah. And then I happily played it. And then he played king d7. Now I realize he's threatening bishop takes c5. And I was like, shoot, I forgot that he actually moves the king and he's threatening bishop takes c5. So he doesn't have to move the... So now I'm forced to take on d4. My position is so good and I'm still winning. But the funny thing is you calculate. So typically what happens is, this is a common mistake, by the way, in calculation, right? You think one variation in depth and accuracy, or with higher accuracy, and you're calculating all of that. And you want to do a minor tweak in that. And you think you can change the move order and do that, but you don't realize that that changes too many things, right? And you just like want to do it. So that's what I did here. And of course I should have cross-checked it, but since the time control was shorter, I just kind of played it fast. And then I realized, so here I have to take on d4. So I took on d4. My opponent plays knight f4. I play bishop e8 check. And again, I'm completely winning. The king goes to c7, I take. So rook g8. And at this point, I have like countless number of pawns for the material. So I play bishop f7 because I'm going to win that rook. My opponent played this, takes. I could have thrown in the check first, maybe. Also possible. But okay, I took and played rook e8. Rook e7 check, I thought is a problem met with bishop d7. I didn't like the fact that he can play bishop d7, rook e8. So I played rook e8. Again, I'm clearly winning, but I have to say that this was not the best execution. I kind of was forced into going to this bishop takes d4 line, yeah. So what is fun is now the rest of the game I want to talk about is the end game, which is interesting. Believe it or not, this game went for a lot more moves than what I thought it would go. Yeah, black is down 3 pawns and the bishop is pinned. And yeah, in the game I was thinking, okay, anytime, any minute, there's going to be like a resignation, yeah. Okay, but black continued to fight and give me some problems. I mean, which is, you know, a good thing that he... How will this be hard though? Fair enough, fair enough. Well, I had to also use some of my talent. Obviously, if I had been a little careful, this cannot be hard. I made some mistakes along the way. So bishop d4 was played. I played rook e1, bishop takes c5. And now I simply thought I can go around and collect all the pawns. Yeah, rook e5. b6, rook takes g5. Now the h7 pawn also most likely will fall. My opponent played bishop b7, rook takes. Actually, I played rook. I could have played rook takes 8, bishop takes 8, and rook g7, or I played rook g7 directly. Rook takes e8 check, e8, bishop takes e8 check, king b8, and I take the pawn. So now, if you take on g2, I'm going to play rook takes b7. If you do bishop takes g2, I'm going to attack your knight. And I'm actually have 4 pawns, yeah, for the rook and 2 minor pieces. But here I made a small mistake already. Who can tell me what black will play here? Just be practical. I mean, like, obviously black is still lost, but black has a very, very good practical approach here. Yeah, Guru, that move's playable, but I think eventually you're going to lose, right? Arvind, that move's also possible, but I'm simply going to defend the pawn. I mean, even if you pick up 1 pawn and my h pawn starts running, it is a little annoying, but actually black has a decent move here. Yeah, knight d3, guys, I'm going to probably play rook f7, yeah? What is wrong with just simply rook f7? I don't think you're going to be able to achieve much. And now I'm going to start pushing the h4 pawn. Remember this, all I need is to play h4, h5, h6. Then at least I'll win 1 piece. Bishop e4, maybe I don't need to play rook h4, right? Angela, bishop e4, maybe I'll play rook g7. Why am I playing rook h4? Either rook g7 or rook h8 or something like that. Maybe, probably rook g7, yeah? Yeah. It's funny. You all would have found this probably faster, but I kind of primed you to not look at some moves. I tricked you. You're not looking at some moves because I kind of talked about them like you should dismiss them. I wish it's a black to play. I wish white to play. Of course, I'll play rook g7. I'm very happy. Vihan, you're right. Yeah, you should consider that move. Arvind, you're right. That's already important thing to look at, right? So that's your most realistic chance. Arvind is saying that if somehow I pick up some pawns, I might go into an opposite color bishop endgame. One endgame where you might be able to actually make a draw if you're down multiple pawns. Vihan, that's just dropping a piece. You did not get my rook. Roger, thank you. I think Roger has it. The move is bishop takes g2, rook f7, and bishop d6, yeah? And I'm picking up the second pawn. Yeah, so it's got to be spectacular. That's right. Bishop d6, after rook takes f4, bishop takes f4, king takes g2, bishop takes d2. So now I'm I'm not sure if I'm winning anymore, right? What do you guys think? Do you think white's still winning? It's 2 pawns. Let's see how well you know your opposite color bishop endgame. Interesting. You're all so much more confident than I was. You're all like, white's winning, white's winning. Well, I was looking at this position and I was just like kicking myself, thinking, oh my God, I've messed it up. I don't know if this is winning anymore. Well, frankly, I haven't analyzed this in depth, but I don't know. I don't think it's winning. At least my initial impression is I don't think it's winning. The problem is the 2 pawns, of course, are first of all close enough, which means, I mean, typically if you maintain a diagonal, like either this diagonal or this diagonal, I can easily block them off. And most importantly, one more thing about opposite color bishop endgames is that the closer they go towards the edge of the board, the other side is blocked. There's no path, right? If these 2 pawns were to be, let's say, F and D pawns, I would have a much better chance to win the game. Because for this H pawn, let's say it's on H7 and the bishop blocks it, I don't have another way around, right? And if the black king, let's say, stays on F7 or E7 and blocking the white king's path, it's very difficult to get in. So my guess would be draw, yeah? But okay, I probably need to analyze this more. You guys can do that too, feel free to do it. But let me just go over some parts, yeah? I played king f3. I tried to get the king in, king f5. So I could play bishop h5 here. Probably better option, I think, to get my king to g6. But I don't think even the king on g6 does anything, because if the bishop is here, like I said, right, it doesn't do much. Like, for example, let's say bishop is here and black just waits. You cannot do much other than pushing your pawn to h7 and pushing your pawn to f5. Let's say this pawn goes here, this king goes here, this pawn goes here. I still wait. Now you see the problem with the pawn in h7. If this was any other pawn, you would go around and win the game easily, yeah? But it's, yeah, not so clear anymore. Anyways, I played bishop c6. I'll just go to the fun part of the game, yeah? F4. And then I started pushing my pawn. I could have played king g5 and pushed the pawn as well, but I was kind of toying around here and there. I was not so sure if like I told you, I was not even sure if I'm winning anymore. And going this side also didn't seem to help so much because he plays a5 and puts a bishop on this diagonal. And I don't see how that is clearly going to win anymore, yeah? So I was just hanging around a little bit. So I went in and then I moved the bishop back all the way to g6. And then I suddenly thought I found an interesting plan. So I went f5, king g5. So he has to stop me from playing f6. Let me see. I think there's an idea you're talking about. Let me go to the interesting part. There is 2 interesting endgames still coming out of this. I want to get to that, yeah? You guys can still feel free to analyze this game more. It'll be interesting, right? But okay, I played king e6, bishop here, and now I found this interesting idea. So this is why I put the bishop on g6. So my point now is I want to play f6. And if you play bishop takes f6, I want to play h6 and h7. So now that my king is around, my opponent has kind of given this, I will win if the pawn goes to h7 because I will win his bishop, yeah? So I don't need to under promote, Rishi, yeah? I just simply need to get this pawn to h7. So I want to play f6. So here I thought actually I found a winning plan here, right? But he again decided to wait. So the beauty is I play f6, he plays king g5, and he doesn't take. Exactly, he doesn't take. So if this position, I give him the move, right? And let's say he won't take it. If he takes, I get h6. And I should win the game. But he could simply wait with the bishop unlimited moves. And I don't have any good moves. Think about this. If I move the king over, then he will take, and there is no h6 because king takes g6. So my bishop being on g6 becomes a problem, right? And if I go to e7 or g7, he takes f6 with a check. So simply, at this point, I was like losing all hope. So I played bishop e4 with one interesting idea. So this is where the two different endgames comes in. So I thought there is one move that's a draw, and he should do it. Which move is that? He can take on f6, or he can take on h5. Which move do you think is a draw? I will give you a minute. Think about it. Because by now we are playing pretty fast. We don't have a lot of time. So you also have to make quick decisions. So already two players have given me two different moves. Guru, Owen, Vihan, all of you want to take on h5. Anchi, Rishi, take on f6. Ryan, take on f6. Aryan, take on h5. It's not minus 0.6. It can never be. Angela wants to take on h5. Take on h5. All right, fair enough. I'll tell you what, you have to take on h5. But in the game, my opponent took on f6. The problem is after I play h6, now I'm going to go h7. And you cannot take this. And if I go h7, I go and win the bishop. The only question is, can I hold these pawns together with the bishop, right? So, but I want to quickly ask you this. Let's say I play king takes h5, yeah? Can white just simply queen the pawn? Are you fast enough to catch it? First, that's the first question. Angela says, yes, of course, yeah? The problem is I don't get to play king e8 because you're attacking my pawn. I have to waste a move with king e7. And let's say you play something like this, and I have to play f7 now, and then you just get in with that check, right? There is no king g6, yeah, because the bishop is guarding. The bishop is guarding g6, so I cannot go there. But bishop a3 check, exactly, and then you go king g7, and we have a draw, right? But all is not over. I had a trick planned for this. What do you think I'll do? I had decided that I will try something. Rishi is correct. Pihan, Arvind, that doesn't change much. What exactly do you think white has here as the last resort? Rishi and Austin May, Angela, Pihan, good. Right, so most of you are getting the idea now, right? c5. That was the move I had planned. Now I want to give up that pawn, but I want to block the diagonal. So everything is coming down to that one move, right? So the good news is the one remaining pawn is the right corner. It's a light square. So I'm kind of happy about it, right? c5, pawn takes c5. And now, of course, I want to play king e7. But now, okay, what I realized is I have to calculate this endgame. Let's say I play c4, f7, king g5. Let's say I queen the pawn. You go check, takes. And let's say the king comes to f4 and this bishop goes back. I don't want to go to c2. You will get another tempo. So I had to calculate this endgame. My hope was that if black king directly goes for the a pawn, I'll play a4, put my bishop on c2 or d1. And when you play c2, I'll sacrifice. I might still win this one, right? I could not play king e8, Arvind, because the bishop was attacking f6. So just to clarify Arvind's question, the bishop is keeping an eye on f6. So otherwise king e8, of course, wins, yeah? So that's why I had to do that. All right, I'm going back to our position. Now, okay, so I started, by the way, during the game, of course, I had no idea what the result was, but I thought black should be able to make a draw. And it turns out I was right. But it was not so easy, though. So I'm going to ask this again. So let's say king e3, king e7. And let's say you play c4, and I go king d6, and you go king d2. So all of this is obvious. So like I said, king going here doesn't make sense. And okay, white plays king c6 or something. Now, who can give me this variation? What happens after c2? Easy. Very, very classic endgame. Something that all of you in this room should have studied. Well, give me a variation. Give me a full variation after c2. Let's see what your best sequence is for white and black. And then give me a result. Kyle, that was too easy. Eric, too easy. Ananya, again, too easy. You all have to start putting up a better fight for black. Aryan, you're not playing a4 after c2, are you? I gave you a clue too. There's the most classic king and pawn in game. Aryan, I need more moves. Guru, that variation again was very easy. I think white's winning in that one. Does anyone recognize the classic position I'm talking about? Does anyone feel like there is an endgame that you should know? Yes, Vihan. Unfortunately, no one has given me nope, a big no. Okay. Thank you. Austin May is the final, was the one person was given me a draw. No one else seems to find a draw. Okay, Kyle is saying it's a draw. That is not a draw, Kyle. King b7 and I will win. Okay, very quickly. I will play some random moves to get to that other position. So ignore me for a while because I don't want to set up a new position. I just want to play it out. Who remembers this position? If you are studying king and pawn in game, this is one of the most basic positions you have to start with. You probably pick any book, you're going to see this. Yeah, now I see all of you. Remember this, theoretical knowledge is one, applying it in a game or understanding it in a part of variation is one, right? All of you know this, right? Why can't I simply go take the pawn here? Why is that not possible? I mean, you all remember that white king has to shoulder the black king this way and then go there to win. Why can't I simply walk to a7? Black gets to c7 in 5 moves. That's correct. Black can get to c7 in 5 moves. And I don't have to walk straight either. I can also go around, right? That is what I'm trying to do. Now, let me come back to our game. So c2. Ooh, I did it too much, yeah? c2, bishop takes c2. Where is the black king trying to go? c7, not chase the pawn behind this way, yeah? You're all like, oh, king here. Oh, shoot, I'm losing, yeah? You know that. You're not catching the pawn on this side. Why are you going to b3? You can actually go to c3 as well. I think it's okay. But you have to go to e5, of course. And if a6, you have to go king e5. And you have to go here and draw. So my opponent had to find this for a draw. By the way, right here, you might think there is enough drama in this game. It's all over. But guess what? There is one more twist in this game. So I'm going to go back. I'll try to wrap it up as soon as possible. But let me go back. Okay. So right here, we talked about king h5 or bishop takes f6, yeah? If king h5, I was going to play c5, but this game all the way to the end should have still ended in a draw. But my opponent played bishop f6. I was like super happy. I was like, okay, I got this covered. Now I'm winning, yeah? So this should be pretty straightforward. I play h6, bishop here, h7. Now I'm going to go king g8. I'm going to win the pawn. So first question for all of you. What setup would you try to achieve on the queen side because this king is going to take some time to win that bishop and come back, right? What would you do on the queen side to make sure that the black king doesn't pick up both the pawns? What setup would we try to achieve? A4, bishop c6, bishop b5. Okay, Vihan has given me a setup. Roger, bishop c6, bishop b5. Arvind wants to put his bishop on b3 like a pawn. Interesting. Bishop c6, bishop b5. Chen Zhuan wants to play bishop d5. Okay, interesting. Anyone else? Eric wants to put his bishop on a6. A4, bishop b3. Guru wants to play a4 and then put the bishop on b3. That's a little dangerous, don't you think, Guru? Because your bishop can be attacked then. If you play pawn a4, then put your bishop on b3, my black king will come and attack the bishop. All right, so looks like most of you played like a grandmaster. The only problem is you played like a grandmaster when he was making a mistake. I brilliantly thought it's good to put my bishop on b5 with a pawn on a4. It's a terrible idea. And I would say Chen Zhuan is the one who has given me the simplest win. Put the bishop on d5 or e6 and black can do nothing. So let's say king f4, put the bishop here, right? Actually, now maybe they'll threaten this. Let's put the bishop somewhere here for now. Let's say the king comes in, you go in. The king comes in, you go in here. And the point is, I can never take a2 because c5 check. It's just not possible, right? So c4 is well defended. And anytime b5 happens, you take, and there is enough protection on a2 and b3 square. So black simply cannot get rid of both the pawns. So you put the bishop further away so you avoid any b5 tricks. And that's it. Like, for example, when I say b5 trick, I'm talking about a situation like this, yeah? You just want to watch out for b5. So if you put the bishop all the way back at this end, it's just an easy win, right? Now, if not for this, I should have at least done what Arvind was suggesting. Put the bishop on b3 and make it like a pawn. That would have still worked. Because if black plays a5 and a4, I would go back to d1. And again, black will not be able to eliminate both my pawns. He can win one of them, but black cannot eliminate both of them, right? So, of course, I'm at this point very happy that I'm just finally winning this game. And I happily go bishop c6 and bishop b5. And I do all of this. And at this point, I start thinking, I might have messed something up. And if I play a4, what's the problem? So for those who wanted to do this setup, what's the problem with a4? Well, a6, bishop takes a6 is winning. King a5, okay. And then a6, correct? So what I realized is I will play king a5. So if the bishop moves, king will come back to b4. So I cannot do much. Let's say I move the king. a6 will happen. Bishop will move. And when the king moves, this is the move I was counting on. What did I miss? I missed b5, of course, yeah? Now it's a draw. Like in most obstacle bishop win games, this idea of bishop c6, bishop b7 works. So I just kind of thought about it quickly and I went there. But right here, I realized I cannot play a4. a4 is a draw. So then I went for the other idea. I think Eric suggested this at some point. Put the bishop on a6 and the pawn on c4 and give up your a2 pawn. So I thought, okay, let's try it. King g7. Anyways, a4 is a draw. So right now, actually, a5 is an easier draw for my opponent, I think. Actually, yeah, right here, simply a5. Because after I take the pawn, there's no bishop a6. So he should have started with a5. But okay, he played all of this. And finally, I played bishop a6. And we reached this position. He played king a5, I went back. King b4, and I played bishop to e6. Okay, I've rearranged it. If he plays a5, I walk in. a4, I take. a3 just in time to win the game, right? And I was like, okay, relaxed. Finally, this game is done. Well, not exactly. He waits. And I'm like, wait, how do I make progress? Because if I move my king around to a6, by the time I go to b7, he'll play b5. So what am I supposed to do here? How should I win this one? This is the last question. So I'm going to push this a little bit more. If you guys have the time, hang around, because this is an extremely, extremely interesting position. I was really fascinated that I actually ended up in a position like this again in this one game. Roger, possible. Okay, so some of you are saying, let's wait. Okay, first thing I'm going to say is, okay, if you wait, I will simply wait. What do you want to do? The problem with king b7 is I played this and I'm immediately threatening b5. And if you go king a6, you basically have drawn the game now, because now your king is stuck. Black will simply go king c4, king c5, king b4, king c5, king b4, and it's already a draw. Because your king can never move, I'll play b5. Your bishop can never move the diagonal because you lose a c4 pawn. So it's gone. So your idea of going king b7, king a7 will run into b5. So Roger and Vihan want to do triangulation. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. I have not seen a very interesting idea. Actually, if this position is black to play, is losing for black. Because black cannot have the king on a4 or a5, because white will get bishop c8. And so the idea is I want to go bishop c8, bishop a6, and then I want to go king b7, king c7. Sorry, king b7, king a7. And yeah, I've seen a lot of triangulation positions, but this was really, really cool. Exactly. This looks like such an easy win in the first glance, right? But in fact, after the game, we both were analyzing the game and we said, turn the engine on and said, white's winning. And it just asked me to go to d6, c7, all these things. I was like, what is going on here? It took me some time to understand that this position is actually winning if it's black to play, right? So first of all, the triangulation is easy. So actually, sorry, I think you can simply go with king d6, king c7, and king here. Now, the reason black cannot do much about this is because, let's say I go king a4 and I'll go king c7. Now, the thing is, black has to come back here. If he goes king a5, I will get bishop a6 anyways. Sorry, bishop c8, yeah, because b5 is met with c5. And now if you move the king, I'll go bishop a6, and then I'll go here and I'll win the pawn. So black has to come back to b4 here, and you come back to c6, and you're given this. Now the key is the bishop to be on e6, because you have to go bishop c8. That's why you could not get this with the bishop on f7 or on g8, or even on d5, yeah? The bishop has to be on e6, so I can go bishop c8, bishop a6. So here, okay, a5 loses because I'll take. And if the king goes to c3, how do I? Yeah, I can play king b5 followed by bishop c8, bishop a6, and do the same. So now, let's say you go whatever, I'll play this move. I will go bishop a6, then I'll walk my king around that way. King a6 would be a blunder. I would never do that. If the king goes to a4 or a5, same move. The key is after a5, take, I'm one move short, because the king is on a4 instead of b4. Yeah, so of course, there's no way I'm figuring it out. I brilliantly played bishop f7 and played king b7, played king a6, only to realize that I've blundered, and the game ended in a draw. So basically just back and forth, eventually b5 and draw. So, well, I don't mind the result, because I thought, to me, this was a crazy fun game. And analyzing this game was, again, really, really fun, because look at the ups and downs. And in one game, look at how many things we got to learn. So one of the things I want to say before I wrap up is that you have to try to analyze your games, right? You should always be curious. You have to ask some questions like, why, right? Could I have done this? Could I have done this? Don't turn the engine on immediately. Right? Try to figure out some answers on your own. So a lot of the positions early on, I was trying to first calculate on my own. And then, of course, I would turn the engine on and try to kind of compare the variations. Yeah. All right. So I guess we are a little past our class time. Hopefully you guys had fun. I really enjoyed this game, and hopefully you did too.